Hello there, welcome to Planet America. I'm John Barron.
And I'm Chaz Cidello.
This week the Trump trial is almost done and dusted and debate season is starting early.
Meanwhile, Congress descends into chaos over tapes that Biden does not want played. But first...
It may be the first potential game changer of the 2024 presidential race.
Tonight, in a true campaign surprise, President Biden and Donald Trump agreeing to two one-on-one debates. The first just a few weeks from now, at the end of June.
June 27th, in fact, from a CNN studio in Atlanta, Georgia, with moderators Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. No audience, though, to cheer either candidate on, just stony silence. That is all still weeks before either the Republican or Democratic conventions, which will formally nominate Trump and Biden, making it the earliest general election presidential debate in American history. A second debate on September the 10th has also been agreed upon. That will be hosted by ABC America. It all happened very quickly after this challenge from Biden.
Donald Trump lost two debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debates. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice.
And Trump, who's been calling on Biden to debate for weeks, eagerly accepted the challenge.
It is my great honor to accept the CNN debate against crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States and a true threat to democracy.
What made this all such a surprise is that it completely excludes the Bipartisan Commission on Presidential Debates, which has run 33 debates since the late 1980s. They had scheduled the first debate for mid-September, which both sides complained was a little bit too late. Biden's team were also unhappy with the way that debate rules were largely ignored by Trump in 2020. But putting the debate into the hands of CNN, ABC and the two campaigns has opened the door to a lot of haggling over details. Biden's campaign does not want independent candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. on the stage, but technically he could make it if he qualifies to appear on enough state ballots to reach the 270 electoral vote threshold and receives at least 15% in 4 separate national polls. Not impossible, but rather too late, somebody realised that the language in the debate guidelines actually appears to exclude both Trump and Biden, who will not become their party's official nominees until later in the summer. And then Biden advisers quickly let it be known that they had not agreed to any terms that could possibly include Kennedy. Kennedy's campaign is now trying to qualify for those state ballots and is looking at their legal options to try and force their way into the debates. But given these are invitation-only affairs from private companies, that could be tough. By getting two debates with no potential for Trump to stack the audience with supporters, no Robert Kennedy Jr. and microphones that automatically cut off when a speaker's time has elapsed, the Biden campaign is claiming victory. While Trump's team seem to think that getting Biden on any debate stage is a victory for them. And Trump wants to impose a few more conditions too.
He's going to be so jacked up for those debates, you watch. I just want to debate this guy, but you know, and I'm going to demand a drug test too, by the way. I am. No, I really am.
And if that sounds a little bit familiar, here's Trump before the first debate in 2020.
People say he was on performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have written that. I would love to take a test, and he can take a test too.
In the event, of course, nobody took a drug test before the debate. Trump took a COVID test, which was positive, but he went ahead and he debated Biden anyway. Trump then became seriously ill. He gave COVID to his debate coach, Chris Christie, who nearly died. But these are all historical details.
Talking about details, there's a subtle element in Biden's plans that I think hasn't been so well noticed. And that is when Biden reduced the number of debates from 3 to 2, he also got rid of the most threatening debate format to him, which is the town hall debate, where you take questions directly from voters. Those debates are always the most chaotic and the hardest to plan for. That was a debate where Trump was looming behind Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so Biden got away with that one completely, I think, by removing that format. Meanwhile, even though Trump tried to accept a third debate on Fox News on October 2nd, Biden then totally ignored him. And then Trump had another go a few days later by accepting an invitation for the vice presidential debate to be on Fox News this time. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris had already accepted the debate on CBS, so I guess we're going to see what happens there. There's going to be some more tiresome whinging. I thought we escaped it, John. We're this close.
No such luck. Well, for more, we're joined by Elaine Kmark. She's a former senior advisor to Vice President Al Gore. She's also a member of the Democratic National Committee, as well as being a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. Elaine, welcome back to Planet America.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Elaine, both sides are claiming an advantage in the holding of this first debate. Is there, do you think, an upside to either Trump or Biden when it comes to either the debate rules or the timing of the debate itself?
I don't see why they're both claiming victory, frankly. Okay. It seems to me that they came to a very good and very quick, frankly, conclusion of this. They still may have things to fight about. I mean, there's these debate preparations get into the weeds, like the height of the stand that they're behind and what it looks like and the set, and they still have to sort out all of those things. So there'll be plenty of things to fight about. But it seems to me that they came up with a good plan.
And do you personally prefer the changes that have been made?
I do. I think the absence of an audience is very important. And the most important thing, because of Trump's propensity to bully people, is the ability to turn off the mic at 2 minutes or 1 minute or however long they're given. Because without that, you would have a repeat of the horrible debate that they had 4 years ago, where they were just yelling at each other. And Trump interrupted over 100 times. It was just awful. At one point, Biden just shook his head and said, "Oh man, would you just shut up?" And it gives a sense of just how bad it got. So I think the ability to turn off the mic is going to be critical to having this debate be somewhat sensible and reasonable.
Elaine, historically, incumbent presidents have often had bad first debates. They're just kind of out of practice. Do you think that this debate poses a significant risk to Joe Biden?
It's a risk for them. I mean, you know, incumbent presidents, first of all, they're used to being president. They're used to giving orders and not having to defend themselves. Secondly, they tend to want to focus on their accomplishments. Their accomplishments in their minds are very big and very important. Often that's correct. And because they want to do that, they don't give the audience that forward-leaning message that a lot of people want from political campaigns. So it's tough for a president. That's why so many of them have bombed in their first debates.
Now, pundits have been interpreting Biden pushing for debates as kind of an admission that he thinks his campaign needs some help. Is that a fair interpretation in your view?
I think it is partially so. That's right. I mean, the problem is that Biden can't break through the noise. Okay, it is Trump, 24/7. If you're here in the United States, you turn on the television and they're covering his every minute of his trial. Every time he comes out of the courthouse and speaks, they're covering it. It's very, very difficult for Biden, even though he's president of the United States and meanwhile governing and doing some quite important things, he can't get heard. So I think this was a way that they thought they could break out of this 24/7 Trump world and try to get their message out. When he did that at the State of the Union, everybody said, "Oh, hooray, look at that. He's not a senile old man. He actually can put two sentences together quite well." So that's good. I also think that Trump is doing a really sort of weird thing. Usually you want to increase expectations of your opponent. Trump is decreasing them. He keeps saying things like Biden can't put two sentences together, etc. Well, the way Trump is talking, any voter who's kind of on the fence, if they look at Biden and expect to see a drooling old man and they see somebody who's pretty coherent, that's going to be a win for Biden. So I think that the Trump strategy is a little odd. I would expect in the next month for his advisors to attempt to get him to change what he's saying about Biden.
And do you think that Robert Kennedy Jr., the independent, is likely to be able to force his way onto this debate stage?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He has no standing. He will almost certainly not get on enough ballots to get 270 electoral college votes. We won't know for sure until July, but it does not look like he'll be on ballots. And why would you let anybody be on the stage who couldn't possibly become president, who couldn't possibly get the votes to become president? Plus, at this point, neither candidate, neither Trump nor Biden, really knows which of their voters might be tempted for Kennedy. For Biden, they think, well, it's the Kennedy family. He's a famous Democratic family, so the Biden people worry about Kennedy, but the Trump people are worried about him too, because he is tapping into that anti-vax, anti-establishment, anti-science wing of the Republican Party that used to be, kind of Trump voters. So right now, neither candidate really knows who they might lose to a Robert Kennedy. It's too risky, and they're just not going to do it.
Elaine Kmark, thanks for being with us again on Planet America.
Well, you're quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
Former President Trump was in Texas on the weekend to receive the endorsement of the National Rifle Association. It was a long, rambling speech with plenty of weird bits, like when he was interrupted by a fly.
This fly is brutal. I don't like flies.
And then Trump started to talk about how good he was when he went off script.
You don't mind if I go off the cuff for these stupid teleprompters, do you? Isn't it nice to have a president that doesn't need a frickin' teleprompter? Isn't that nice?
And then Trump talked about how well he could get back on topic after a lengthy tangent.
I start, even I say to myself, you're a frickin' genius.
And then about 1 hour and 20 minutes into this speech, he got back on script, ready for the grand finale.
Together they help make America into the single greatest nation in the history of the world.
But then, oddly, some somber music started up and Trump stopped. Maybe the teleprompter got stuck, but the self-proclaimed frickin' genius just stood there, shaking his head for a full 35 seconds before he started up again.
But now, we are a nation in decline.
And for the next 13 minutes, he talked with that strange funeral parlour backing track. Why? We still don't know, but no doubt if Biden had done that, we would never hear the end of it. But this was the clip that made news.
FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years, he was 4-term. I don't know, are we going to be considered 3-term or 2-term? You tell me. Ronnie, what do you think? Are we 3-term or 2-term if we win?
Are we 3-term or 2-term? That led to headlines like Trump at NRA convention floats 3-term presidency, and reports that Donald Trump flirted with the idea of being president for 3 terms, a clear violation of the US Constitution. The implication being that he would stand for a 3rd term in 2028 if he wins again this year, when pretty clearly he was actually implying that he won in 2016 and 2020, and so 2024 would be considered a 3rd term. So it's election denialism, but he was not saying that he will stay longer than 8 years, which is not to say that Trump's election denialism doesn't matter either, especially now that it's become a litmus test for his next vice presidential candidate. The latest contender to toe that particular line is Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Here's Rubio back on January the 6th, 2021. The day that he voted to certify Biden's win, despite Trump's false claims the election had been stolen, and of course the same day as the attack on the Capitol by Trump supporters.
Democracy is held together by people's confidence in the election and their willingness to abide by its results.
And now here's wannabe Vice President Marco Rubio 3 years and 4 months later.
Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one.
Well, not every single one. Obviously, they won 3. And while some Democrats raised doubts about the fairness of close elections in 2000, 2004 and 2016, Important to note, each time the Democratic presidential candidate conceded defeat and the result was certified, Trump tried to stop that certification. And of course, Chaz, he has still yet to concede defeat in 2020.
That is true. And look, it was a fine attempt from Marco Rubio to duck the question entirely, but it might be all for naught, I'm afraid, Marco, because this week Trump gave a pretty massive hint as to his VP pick when he posted that one of the debates, quote, would take place at an HBCU on behalf of the future Vice President of the United States. HBCU stands for Historically Black College or University. In other words, Trump's suggesting that Tim Scott is going to be his VP pick. Now, he might be bluffing.
Yep.
Probably is bluffing. But for what it's worth, that's what he said. I should also say on the third term thing, running for the third term, when he wasn't joking like he clearly was in that speech, and when he was talking to Time magazine, he did specifically say he opposed getting rid of the 22nd Amendment, which stops people running for
he's
third
pretty
terms.
much categorically ruled it out as much as that can ever be taken to the bank with Trump.
Sure, yeah. Anyway, last few weeks on the campaign have seen a lot of economic talk, and it's not all good for Biden. The Consumer Sentiment Index is starting to drop off a bit, meaning that people are going off the economy just when Biden needs them to get on board with the economy. That could be related to a mediocre economic growth figure in the first quarter this year. You can see there 1.6%. But on the other hand, the Dow Jones just crossed 40,000 for the first time ever. And that's something that might have seemed implausible a few years ago. It certainly seemed implausible to Trump in 2020.
They said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay.
Incorrect. Although if we're being fair, as a percentage, the Dow is actually increasing at a slower rate than it did under Trump. That's under Trump, and then this is under Biden. It's not bad, but slower. Of course, none of that matters as much as inflation does, though, and voters are really not feeling the love there for Biden. With the New York Fed's survey of consumer expectations showing the highest inflationary expectations in 5 months, even though inflation last month did actually fall a bit. Both regular inflation fell and core inflation without food and energy. In fact, grocery food prices actually, get this, went down a bit last month, actually negative. The prices fell. So there's actual progress for Biden there, but obviously not enough because he's recently taken to making this claim.
No president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%. But look, we have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%.
And to be clear, that is 100% not true. The inflation rate was 1.4% when Biden took office. But you can understand why Biden might be a bit sensitive about where he stands with the economy, because nothing he does is working right now. The last few weeks he's been trying to sell job creation. There have been some great figures out there. He actually went to the very spot where in 2018, Trump showed up literally holding a golden shovel, promising to create 13,000 jobs at a new plant. Then the next year, the firm involved backed out of the deal, whereas Biden this time was touting a $3.3 billion Microsoft data center that is happening, along with 2,000 new jobs. And the result of Biden's campaigning? The New York Times talked to a worker named Chris Myers who said he'd never seen so much construction work in the area. In fact, he himself was helping build the Microsoft data center that Biden was touting. And Myers said he was going to support Trump because I like his go-get-em, take-no-crap attitude. And Myers complained that Biden's visit last week celebrating the creation of jobs like his ended up slowing down the concrete trucks. Sometimes you just can't win.
Your choice, 2024.
They want to undo what they finally got done. And then what we finally got done to make up for it.
I'm very ambidextrous, so to speak. I can do a lot of things at one time.
Choose wisely.
Former President Donald Trump's business records trial in New York is almost over. Trump's one-time personal attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, turned out to be the prosecution's final witness. And in the 4 days on the witness stand, he maintained that he made the $130,000 hush money payment to adult performer Stormy Daniels at the direction of Donald Trump. But in the end, Cohen was the only person to offer first-hand evidence directly linking Mr. Trump to the falsified record. So it all depends on whether the jury believes Cohen. And under cross-examination, Cohen's credibility took some hits, including a confession that he'd only paid $20,000 to an IT firm to try and rig an internet poll in Trump's favour, not the $50,000 he'd claimed back from Trump. Asked by Trump attorney Todd Blanche whether that meant he stole from the Trump organisation, Cohen said, "Yes, sir." And the defence played tapes from Cohen's podcast that may have undercut his mostly reasonable, contrite persona in court.
I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. It won't bring back the year that I lost or the damage done to my family.
But in the end, this case could come down to just one phone call and a 14-year-old prankster, Chance.
Yeah, John, like as you say, Michael Cohen's testimony is doing so much lifting in this trial. It's Michael Cohen who's showing that Trump was involved in every part of the hush money payment, that Donald Trump knew the payments were being hidden, that Donald Trump was hiding those payments to win the election, all the critical parts of the case, right? And one of Cohen's key bits of testimony was that he obtained final approval from Trump to proceed with the hush money payment before he went through with it. So Trump's fingerprints were on it, right? Cohen called Trump's bodyguard at 8:02 p.m. on October 24, 2016, and Cohen was asked, why did you need to speak with Mr. Trump at that point? He said, to discuss the Stormy Daniels matter and the resolution of it. And he was asked, do you have an understanding about whether during that conversation you resolved that you were moving forward to fund the deal? And Cohen said, yes. There you go. Case closed. It's all over. Except what came out on cross-examination was that before that call, Cohen had been harassed by, as you say, a 14-year-old prankster for days. And that prankster accidentally revealed their phone number at 7:10 p.m. that night. And Cohen then got into a text exchange with the said prankster. And that whole exchange was between 7:10 and 7:24 p.m. Then Cohen texted Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, at 7:48 p.m. and he wrote, who can I speak to regarding harassing calls to myself and office? The dope forgot to block his call on one of them. Then at 8:01 p.m, there was a voicemail from Keith Schiller to Michael Cohen. And then at 8:02 p.m, Schiller texted Cohen with, call me. He then called him straight away, 8:02, and he spoke to Schiller for 1 minute and 36 seconds. Then at 8:04 p.m, immediately after the call, Cohen texted Schiller the prankster's phone number. Then Schiller texts back with okay, and then Cohen texts Schiller at 7:58 a.m. the next morning asking, did you reach the family? All of that is backed up by data. That is a fact, all you just heard. So then Blanche asked Cohen, when you testified on Tuesday that you had a specific recollection that that 1 minute and 36 second phone call on October 24th was not with Keith Schiller, that you called Keith Schiller and he passed the phone to President Trump. You finalised the deal with Stormy Daniels and you said, we're going to move forward. And he said, yes, because you kept him informed all the time. That was a lie. You were actually talking to Mr. Schiller about the fact that you were getting harassing phone calls from a 14-year-old, correct? And Cohen said, part of it was the 14-year-old, but I know that Keith was with Mr. Trump at the time and there was more than potentially just this. Let's just be clear. He'd never mentioned the 14-year-old until that moment when those calls were revealed. The whole phone call took 90 seconds. This is very, very bad for Michael Cohen's credibility, and particularly with regards to his testimony about what Trump said and did.
Yeah, certainly if Trump is acquitted in this case, that could well be the Perry Mason moment. Although before resting their case on Monday, the prosecutors did produce a photo of Schiller with Trump at around the time of that Cohen 1 minute 36 call. And there were other alleged meetings between Cohen and Trump that they allegedly discussed the plan to pay off Stormy Daniels, and those meetings were not disputed. But those seeds of doubt may well be enough. Both cases have now rested. The jury now has a few days off. Closing statements are due early next week. And then, of course, the jury just has to come up with a verdict, Chaz.
Yes, now talking about legal shenanigans, as you might recall earlier this year, the special counsel investigating Biden's misuse of classified documents expressed concerns the jury might see the president as an elderly man with a poor memory. He said Biden didn't remember exactly when he was vice president, didn't remember the year his son, Beau Biden, died, didn't remember a lot of things. Well, the House Oversight Committee then demanded the transcript of that special counsel interview, which they got, a redacted version of it, and they also demanded the audio recording of the interview. They did not get that. The House said they needed that audio because the recording was necessary for the committee to consider potential legislative reforms. I'm not sure what reforms exactly required the audio of Biden's interview instead of just the transcript. Clearly, they just wanted the audio to run in an ad or on Fox News and stitch Biden up. But then they tried another tack and they said they needed the audio to determine whether sufficient grounds existed to draft articles of impeachment, which of course is also obviously not true. As Democrat Jamie Raskin put it, it's absurd to suggest that listening to the president's words instead of just reading them will suddenly reveal the mystery, high crime and misdemeanor that Republicans have been unable to identify since 2023. Perhaps Republicans should play the Beatles' White Album backwards and the impeachable offence will emerge. Merrick Garland was less of a smartass when he said that the Republicans' audio request was not a legitimate request and would harm DOJ's ability in the future to successfully pursue sensitive investigations, because presumably in future, presidents would then refuse to be recorded. So in response, House Republicans then threatened to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress if he didn't hand over that audio. And in response to that, Joe Biden formally asserted executive privilege over the audio, which effectively shields Merrick Garland from any short-term exposure to criminal contempt proceedings. Now, there is a reason that executive privilege exists. It's meant to shield confidential communications from congressional investigators and, in fact, journalists, out of concern that revealing those communications could impair the executive branch's ability to function. Which is obviously not the case here. They've already released the transcripts. There are no secrets that they're keeping private. Just like the Republicans' original request, Biden is clearly abusing his power here for political purposes to try and keep that audio from getting out. But anyway, Congress was debating whether to hold Merrick Garland in contempt anyway for withholding those tapes. And then this happened.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play.
Baby girl? I don't think
we are gonna move and we're gonna take your words down.
I second that motion.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold on.
part of
I'm
it.
trying to find clarification on what qualifies.
Chairman, motion to strike those
I had no idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just
You just voted to do it.
Y'all did it first, so you don't want to talk about
voted to do it.
Order.
I'm trying to get clarification.
Look at
And it went on and on. You can imagine after that display, they all would have been a little bit embarrassed. Marjorie Taylor Greene certainly did want to clear a few things up.
We should adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
motion at the desk.
Mr. Chairman,
I think my body's pretty good at I'm going to be 50
point of order.
this month. I am. I turned 50.
Mr. Chairman.
Pretty good.
She's always so dignified. But John, I just want to note that what happened then was actually a little bit like what happened in the negotiations beforehand. Some Republicans showed shoddy ethics and a lack of restraint, and then that provoked the Democrats into responding by being just as shoddy and unrestrained, if not more so. And then both sides just point fingers at each other and the government looks like a dysfunctional joke. As soon as one side drops the ball, that ball only rolls in one direction, downwards.
Yep, he can understand why more than 1 in 3 Americans do not vote when given the opportunity. That's it for another trip to Planet America, though. We'll be back at the same time next week, Wednesday at 10 p.m. on ABC TV, and anytime you like from 9 p.m. on ABC iView, YouTube and Facebook.
And don't forget the Fireside Chat this Friday night at 8 p.m. on ABC News. That's also on iView, YouTube and Facebook.
Bye-bye.